Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the February 15th, 2023 meeting of the Milton Conservation Commission. Commission members are appointed by the Select Board to implement the rules and regulations of the State Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Milton bylaw governing the wetlands. As a matter of formality, we introduce ourselves and we invite all members of the public to speak, ask questions, make comments. So let's start with the Conservation Commission. My name is John Kiernan. Arthur, I'm just looking at the screen. Can you introduce yourself?
Arthur Doyle, member.
And Wendy?
Good evening, I'm Wendy Garpo.
Ingrid?
Ingrid, member.
Tom Powell?
Tom Palmer, member.
Okay, I think I've got everyone. So we're ready to go. We have one item on the agenda this evening, and that is informational purposes only. There's no proposal to vote on before the commission, but the school building committee is going to make a presentation regarding the land at Guile Road for use as a school building. And Sean, would you like to proceed?
Yeah, if I could. First off, Mr. Chair, I just want to say thank you for pulling this meeting together this quickly. With me tonight from my committee is Mike Zulis, who also is on the select board, and committee chair Ada Rosemary. Then also from BSc Engineering, Matt Byrne is with us to handle any questions that may come up as far as delineations of the wetlands. If I may, I'd like to share my screen for a brief presentation.
That would be great.
Thank you.
We can see it, Sean.
All right, perfect. So for the public's information, the school building committee was formed in 2019's May town meeting. We're made up of 9 members, 2 of which are from the select board, Mr. Zulis and Mr. Hoffman, and then 2 are appointed by the school committee, member White and member Miranda. The 5 of us at the top are a mix of design and construction professionals with a number of years of experience. Since we met last year, I just wanted to kind of give an update on enrollment and kind of our grade configurations. The enrollment at the elementary school that you're seeing here, which is pre-K at the bottom to 5th grade at the top, has dramatically increased over the years to a point that we're actually operating the elementary schools at a single grade level above what the capacity is. The capacity within the elementary schools is 1,900, and it's shown as that yellow dashed line that goes across. So as you can see, a number of years back, we kind of eclipsed what that enrollment was or that capacity was with enrollment. And the schools have been making modifications to the existing facilities up to a point now that there's no more room. So that's kind of why we're before you tonight. The other part that's going to exacerbate this over the coming years are as this committee is well aware, the 40B projects that are on the books, and then the MBTA zoning requirements that might be coming in the future too. So with us already being overcrowded without space, we're not sure how we can accommodate these. The proposal the school building committee came up with and that the school committee approved is for the creation of a new upper middle school at an educational campus at the high school. What that does is at the elementary school level, we pull out the pre-K and the 5th grade enrollments. We move the 5th grade up to the Pierce and combine it with the 6th grade. So we integrate students earlier in their educational program. And then at the Pierce, we strip out one of the grade levels. Currently it houses 3, and we move that up into the new middle school. So the new middle school would house pre-K, 7th and 8th grade. And by doing this one project addresses overcrowding at all levels. So at the elementary, at the middle, and then also at the high school. So some of the space that will free up at the Pierce Middle School, the high school offices or administrative space can move down there now. And essentially, again, this one project addresses all levels. As I mentioned, the schools right now are out of space. The number of spaces within the school that have been converted are astronomical. What you see here is the Collycott Cunningham Library. Within this library, they've installed essentially office partitions. In the lower left-hand corner, that's a classroom that children are learning in. It's not, adequate for, I think, what we would consider classroom space in this district. The other part that happens with that too is once you create those spaces in the classroom, it squishes the remainder of the space in the library for all the children. Gymnasiums. This is the Glover Gymnasium, actually Tucker Gymnasium, I believe. The Tucker Gymnasium, as you can see, half of it is a classroom, half of it is a gymnasium. Glover, in the cafeteria, they do music on the stage. So, as you see here, kids are leaving out for cafeteria. And the screen, if you could focus on the screen that's up on the stage, this is that stage, crowded with musical equipment. And then the key thing is when you look at the left corner of the left photo, the kids are sitting on the ground. They previously had chairs and desks, and now they sit on the ground for an entire period. Art and music, because the rooms for art and music have been converted, the teachers now have to pack and unpack before each class and after each class to a cart. So you can just imagine professionally not having dedicated space or dedicated rooms, how that affects. And finally, we had kids in hallways. So one of the terms that was used a lot in the past year that I've heard about is, educational excellence. It's a goal that's set for the school or for the districts. As you have overcrowded facilities with underfunded students and teachers, I'm not sure how you're ever going to attain the educational excellence that everybody wants to hit. Our goal for the school building committee is to address the half of the overcrowded facilities. We're not dealing with the budget. So for us, that's why we're before you tonight. Site selection. As the committee is aware, we looked at parcel D656A, the Gow Road Conservation Site, also known as the Lamb Estate. With last year at the Maytown meeting, we took the article that was voted on previously that we were moving forward with and basically made concessions over the past year. Those concessions consisted of, cutting back the land 300 feet off of Blue Hills Parkway to retain the ecologically valuable portion of the site, and then also create a buffer along our neighbors with Home Inc. So what we did, we entered into an engineering agreement with BSC Engineering, and what they've done since last year, they've come up with an alignment of Gow Road that you see here in red. They've went out and staked all the land to show these. So my intention is, Mr. Chair, is to have a site walk at some point so we can actually walk out and see these things. So with that, when we walk out, you'll be able to see the 50-foot conservation buffer that we have with Home Inc., along with the 50-foot zoning buffer and the 300-foot buffer off Blue Hills Parkway. Overall, this effort that we did to kind of address, concerns of our neighbors and, we've reduced the amount of land, conservation land that we're using. We're basically using a third of the parcel now. This also allows us to use the less ecologically valuable portion over on the park side or the active recreation, in which case we're only using a quarter of that overall parcel. Our previous design that we looked at last May that we were presented and this board voted on was what you see before you now. Our current proposal, as you can see, pushes the whole project further off Blue Hills Parkway and further away from Home Inc. When we look at Home Inc., who are essentially our only abutter, when you measure on the Muni mapper that allows you to get a rough distance, it's about 75 feet from the edge of their property to the edge of their building. Couple that with the 50-foot conservation buffer and a 50-foot zoning buffer, it gives you about 175 feet of where the construction boundary will be. Our goal is not to build the building where the red line is. Our goal is to push the building as far away from Home Inc. as possible and work with them to develop the land, with options that they would be amenable to. As I mentioned on the site walk, when we go out there are stakes in the ground. We'll be able to physically and visually see where these boundaries exist. So the next portion I just want to touch briefly is the Article 97 land swap. We've added additional parcels from the land swap that we talked about last year. So last year, we had 2 parcels on Herrick Drive that are shown in yellow and blue. There's an additional parcel that we've identified on School Street that we're adding into this equation. All of that will be unifying with the land shown in green on the map, which is current conservation land. As the committee's aware, Randolph Ave, the center portion of that, roughly about 6 acres, is general municipal land that will be included in this swap. Questions came up last year a number of times that this land was wet, this land was not upland. So I went out and actually took photos. So as you see on the left there, that's Randolph Ave. The brook that exists on there that's shown on the map that we've talked about a number of times. And then essentially wooded upland as you go up. At the top of it, looking down towards Randolph Ave, this is another view. Finally, the last option, the last parcel we'd be including, as this committee is aware for the work over at the project that's going on over here, we've identified 5.1 acres that we can include into the swap. So in total, into Article 97, we're converting over 15 acres, and taking out of Article 97, we're taking out 6.4 acres. So further looking at conservation, with additional work that's been done by town council, Pope's Pond is currently not owned by the Conservation Commission or deeded to the Conservation Commission. So what we'd be looking to do is change the deed of this parcel to be included, to be owned and operated by the Conservation Commission. In which case, a second ratio when you look at this is into conservation, we'd be converting 56.57 acres, and out of conservation, obviously I have a typo there, would only be coming out 2.8 acres. And with that, this is kind of a map overall of the town, identifying all the parcels that would be going into conservation and showing the small portion in red of 2.8 acres coming out of conservation. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll open up to any questions.
Yes, I think that there's been some discussion early on in this process that related to the folks at Home Inc., and they had some concerns with a public trust was the concept. And is there any plan currently as to how that would be addressed by the town?
Yeah, so as I mentioned at the school building committee meeting that we had last time, the intent to, for lack of a better word, insulate the town from future litigation is we would be taking the portions of land that we've listed, the 2.8 acres of conservation and the 3.6 acres of parks land by eminent domain. And to be clear on that, it's the town taking land from the town. It's not taking it from any private entity.
Understood. So the ratio is significantly better, I guess, from the Conservation Commission's perspective, certainly. So we're up 2.8 and we're receiving 56.5 acres of open space. Is that correct?
That would be correct.
All right. All right. So I have had some preliminary discussions with Mr. O'Rourke and others about this. So I have some knowledge of this proposal before, but I wonder whether or not any of the other commissioners have questions.
Not at this point, but just a technical question. Can I get a copy of those slides? I was trying to take pictures on my phone and I got a few of them that had some stats and you know, sort of the retooling of the logistics of the swap, but I didn't get everything I wanted. Can someone send around a copy of those slides to us?
I would be happy to do that if you would allow me to edit the one typo that I found as I was giving my presentation.
I didn't see a typo, but yes, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from commission members? Sean, do you have folks that you have in mind that would like to address the Conservation Commission, either in support of or opposed to?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. There are some, Mr. Burns is on to address any wetlands issues. So if there are none right now from the commissioners, I'd like to excuse him and then we can go to the other support.
I don't.
Hi. Go ahead, John. You have a question?
No, what I was going to say is that you'll remember from a year ago, we had a discussion about a land swap that was not as beneficial to the Conservation Commission at the time. And there was some talk about an isolated wetland from the town's perspective. When I say the town's perspective, there for the public's benefit, there are state-defined wetlands and there are also municipally defined wetlands. And I believe that we had identified, I think through Steve Ives, a small isolated wetland, more, I guess, uphill from Blue Hills Avenue. I'm sorry, Blue Hill Parkway, that has been identified previously. And that's something that I think will be addressed both by Steve Ives upon his return to Milton the first week in March, as well as by Matt Byrne. But it's my understanding that Matt Byrne, on behalf of BSC, has done a delineation closer to Pine Tree Brook. Am I correct, Sean?
That's correct. So we delineated the wetlands along Pine Tree Brook to reestablish the wetland boundary there, and then use that as a working point as we design the road over towards that area. In addition, they've also identified the wetlands that occurred down by the corner of the parcel by Home Inc. And the only outstanding thing that's there are the isolated wetlands that you referenced, Mr. Chair, along Gow Road.
All right. And the first two areas, that closer to Pine Tree Brook and that closest to Home Inc., have they been delineated so that we can see them on the sidewalk?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. I didn't mean to cut you off. Did you have a question?
No, hold my question until we have the sidewalk.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a marvelous idea, both for the Conservation Commission and for the public. Are there other persons that would like to speak to this issue? Sure there are, and I probably should be looking for hands, and I'm not very good at this. You would be on.
Are you looking for a citizen speak?
Yes, we don't refer to that as citizen speak. The select board does, but we always invite the public to ask questions and to make comments. So,
okay.
The speech is yours, ma'am.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Regina Malley. I'm a town meeting member of Precinct 8, a former park commissioner, and a mother of 2 children at the Cunningham School. I speak tonight in favor of the school building committee and support this land swap. It's easy to see that the school building committee has tirelessly worked through this process, looking through all options, and had a very difficult task of finding 6-acre site in the town of Milton. From a Conservation Commission perspective, this is an incredible opportunity to provide the Conservation Commission with over 50 acres of land in exchange for just 2.8 acres to build this school. Truly remarkable opportunity for conservation. From a Milton Public School perspective, this proposal to introduce an upper and lower middle school model solves the overcrowding at all schools. This again is truly remarkable, given that it will benefit all students and families, not just one school, not just a few, or not just schools on a certain side of town. It truly benefits everyone. The creation of the upper middle school as planned will bring students of this town together 1 year earlier and create an entirely new developmentally appropriate educational structure at the middle school level. And I think easing the kids into the middle school as a smaller school with only 2 grades will be really beneficial. The upper middle school on the MHS campus will provide opportunities to all students with regards to academics and athletics. I particularly love the idea of consolidating all the preschools into one school. The child study program offered at the high school is incredible. I believe it's been on hiatus since COVID, but hopefully with this new structure, we could bring it back. I'm really lucky to have grown up in Milton and not only have been a pre-K student myself in this program at age 4, but also participated as a Milton High student as a junior and senior year. I have wonderful memories from this program, and this specific location for this new school and its proximity to the high school will allow for that program to be reintroduced back into the community. So I wholeheartedly support this proposal and hope the Conservation Commission will as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Malley. Alexander Lang, I see your hand raised.
Yes, thank you. I'm actually, apologize if the audio is not so good. I'm actually on my evening walk with my wife across the high school property here. Yeah, so I live in Milton here on Essex Street. We have our daughter is in the Tucker Elementary School. She's in 5th grade. We have seen over the years the congestion and the crowding in the schools, reduced sizes of art rooms, music rooms, libraries, computer rooms. It has been evident and is, I think, a problem. And I think as a town, town citizen here, I've been watching the school building committees work over the last year and a half or so, and I really commend them on what they have achieved, the incredible work that they've put in to identify all the different sites, and so succinctly present this to all to us today. That was a really good presentation. So I'm very much in favor of this proposal and hope that we as a town can come together on this. I think it's time to, put the Monday morning quarterbacks aside, to come together and really get behind this. I think I want to remind everyone listening that as this town, we don't have malls, we don't have Trader Joe's, we don't have a lot, but we have a school system, and we need to invest and build this school system so that future parents and parents to be and others come here and join this town. So that is my plea to please look at it from an angle of keeping this town alive for many, many generations to come. And we really need to invest in this. And this, I know this is not specifically addressed to the Conservation Committee. I applaud that this meeting is being put on and being looked at such a great level and from all angles. And I know there's a lot of questions at this and all of that. And I hope we can all as a town again get together. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for your time.
Alexander, thank you very much for your presentation. Chris, I see your hand raised.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everyone. Thanks very much for having this public session, members of the public to express their views. And I want to say as well, one of the things that I really appreciate about this Zoom screen is just how many people are invested in solving in as practical a way as possible a very, very serious problem that the town faces. And so I very much appreciate the fact that there's so many people here invested in that. My name is Chris Hart. I'm a town meeting member, Precinct 5. I live on Woodland Road, and I have a kindergartner at Tucker and an 8th grader at Pierce. Those are my school parent bona fides. My conservation bona fides, to the extent I can provide them to this commission, is I'm a member of the advisory board of the trustees of reservation, have been for quite some time. So conservation is something that I take very seriously. I think Regina and Alexander have provided, I think, excellent reasons that I share on why it's so important for us to take this proposal from the school building committee so seriously, and why I'm in favor of it from the school's perspective. Let me address just 3 other reasons why I hope that the Conservation Commission will support this proposal. The first is that I know that I speak for many in the town that the work that the school building committee has done over the years to find a suitable solution has been extraordinary. One of the things that has impressed me, and I know has impressed others, is that every time someone presents a question as to whether this or that alternative option has been considered, not only do members of the school committee have a response, but it is a deep one and a well-reasoned one, and leads me to have a great deal of trust in their diligence in the proposal that they bring before you. That is the first reason. The second is that I have been impressed in particular over the past year just how seriously and thoughtfully the school building committee has taken the considerations of various constituencies in town into account in revising its proposal. It is a significant revision that takes into account not only concerns along the lines of conservation, but also concerns from Home Inc. And others who have questions about the original proposal. And I think that that is a deep testament to the work that the committee has done to address serious issues and serious concerns. The third is that I think that the school buildings committee's effort in particular to take seriously the question of conservation is unbelievably important and very impressive. I think that we can all recognize that there's no absolutely perfect solution here, but the fact that the committee has found ways to continue to expand the amount of conservation land that Milton called home, I think should be very impressive and also a testament to the seriousness with which the building committee has taken, not just, of course, the immediate problem of what do we do with our schools and our children who need to be educated, but also what do we do with our conservation land? And that is not lost on me, and I'm sure it's not lost on you. So thank you very much for the opportunity to express my very robust support, and I hope that this commission will vote its approval.
Chris, we all thank you very much for the presentation. Are there others that would like to make a comment, ask a question? Seeing none, and people, Joe, you're waving. Okay.
I can't find, how do I get the hand to raise? I couldn't do that. So
Person to ask Joe.
I've been playing around, so I'm going to do the old fashioned way. Are you guys going to talk anything tonight about the funding for this and, you know, the process of getting funding, what's going to happen with that? I mean, do you have any funding in line already for this? This is something that's come up in the past, and I'm wondering if you've moved forward as you're moving with this extensive and expensive process of land swapping and stuff, conservation. If there's any funding for the school available, what it might be.
You may be asking two questions, Joe. Because the land swap won't cost the citizens anything. It's the town trading land with the town.
That's true. Okay.
I'm sure you may be asking a different question, and that is, will the new school cost anything? And I'm sure it will, but that would be a question for Sean. But the land swap is free to the citizens. It's trading land for land.
What about funding in place for building? I mean, after we go through all this, is that going to be another problem? You're going to be able to get the funding? Is it something you've looked into? I don't know how the process works.
Sean, can you respond to that?
Yeah, so the first, this is the first step of many along the way for this project. And the first one, to figure out what that total cost for the school is going to be, we have to have land, whether we acquire it by purchase or we go through this land swap. So by going through this land swap, you know, that overall dollar value of the construction cost goes down because our acquisition cost is zero. So at this point, we don't have a total number of funding lined up because we don't have a project yet. We need the land first, and then that would follow.
Okay.
You good, Joe?
Yeah.
That's the question. Okay, thank you very much, Joe. Linda Watson, I see your hand up.
Hi, thank you. Linda Watson. I live on Blue Hills Parkway, so I'd be directly affected by this. Precinct 1, I'm also a town meeting member, lifelong resident. My daughter went to Tucker School. I went to Pierce and the high school. I have one question, is the new parcels that are being added to this new plan. And I do give the committee a lot of credit. I know they've been working very hard on this, and especially, you know, it was very disappointing when the Fine negotiations fell through. You know, I think we were all hoping that that could work out. That could have been a really good alternative to this. But my question is about the parcels that are being added. How many of those would be buildable anyway without conservation designation? This was a discussion we had with the original parcels that were being considered for designation for the swap. But these new parcels, how many of them, either because of water or wetlands or just geography, would not be buildable anyway, and so was not really, there's no value added there in terms of being considered, turning it into conservation land, because there's no concern about being being built on. And I just want to remind the committee that, as residents, of the parkway itself, we've heard from people from other parts of town, but, we're burdened with the traffic from Tucker, from the high school, from the Discovery Schoolhouse. We have a disproportionate effect on our neighborhood from these schools. And I think that's something, that people forget. And, traffic is a huge issue. And, we're on the historic register. We're the gateway to the Blue Hills, but sometimes it just feels like a speedway. And we're looking at the ice house to be developed pretty soon. It's going through the permitting process now. So this is a huge issue. And the other thing, and I don't know that the school building committee was necessarily involved in this, but in watching the school committee meeting, the last one, which I know is contentious, but looking at their budget, there was no discussion of what to do around overcrowding classroom space for the next year. And that's a huge issue. And even if this is approved and everything goes ahead by your own estimates, it's going to be 8 to 10 years before this is built. And so they did not put that as a priority on their budget. They had one that would kind of keep the status quo, and then they had another budget for the priorities that they would like to see added, which really surprised me. So I know it's not the committee's job, but there has to be a plan for these kids. We all appreciate that, they're overcrowded. But anyway, so my question really is about the lands that are being considered, that are being added, and what are the chances of those being developed? Thank you.
I can answer some of the questions, but I will defer to Sean and others with respect to others. You asked a good question about the land that's being swapped, and is it already protected, and what is the ecological value of that land? Keep in mind that there are two components to the Conservation Commission's receipt of land. And some of it is land over which we have no jurisdiction otherwise. Some of it is protected currently under the State Wetlands Protection Act. So if you go to Pope's Pond, within 200 feet of Pine Tree Brook, we have jurisdiction. It is, you asked the question, is it buildable? Yes, it is buildable in the outer riparian section, which would be the 100 feet to the 200 feet. Around Pope's Pond, this is kind of an oddity in the state statute, but the jurisdiction is only 100 feet. It's 200 feet to the Pine Tree Brook, but it's 100 feet to the pond. We have jurisdiction in that area. For the first 25 feet, that's called the town's non-disturbance zone. That is non-buildable. You could build in the setting from 25 feet to 100, but you'd have to, come to the Conservation Commission for a permit. Beyond the 100 feet, we would have no jurisdiction at that point. So that land, and I can't give you the two components of the 42 acres. It's approximately 42 acres. Some of it is protected from the jurisdiction. Some of it is not. I don't know the breakdown, but let's assume that it's, I'm just thinking about half and half. So 20 acres would be technically buildable, and 20 would not be buildable. With respect to the other parcels, that which is actual wetlands could not be built upon. When we go to Herrick Drive as an example, that would be a tough place to build, but some of it is upland. When I say upland, I'm distinguishing between jurisdictional land and non-jurisdictional land. A lot of that would be not buildable anyway. So, gee, our point. The school street, which I think is a 1.3, it's close to 1 acre, would be buildable. It is within our jurisdiction because Pine Tree Brook is there. It falls within our jurisdiction. So again, the first 100 feet would not be, well, that may not be true, because if it was a buildable lot that is eligible to be built upon before 1996, it would be buildable. So essentially, that lot on that 1 acre or 1.3 acres on School Street would be buildable. When we go to the 7 acres approximately on Randolph Avenue, that is primarily upland, and that is buildable. So the value coming to us in preserving it in open space is extraordinary. That which the two pictures that Sean showed on the screen, one of them showed a stream that is running essentially parallel to Randolph Avenue. Obviously, you can't build on that. That's protected land. But you could, a limited project technical stream, you could actually go over the top of that, as they did on the other side of Randolph Avenue at 711, where the 40B project has now been approved for construction. That's the reference that Sean made to the appeal by the town to the Supreme Judicial Court, and the town lost. So that is going forward. On the same side of the street as the 7 acre land that the Conservation Commission would receive, there's another 40B project, and that's on the other side. I guess it would be sort of the north side of the access road to the we used to call it dump. I know it's now a landfill. It's not Quarry Hills, but that access road right next to that is a 40B project going in there. So is it buildable? Yes, it is. There are certain protections. There's an endangered species in the area. There are some issues with potential sites for Native Americans. So there are some hoops that a builder would have to go through, but essentially that 7 acres is buildable. When we actually go back to the land that we would not give up on Guile Road, I think that, in fact, others could speak. I think Tom Palmer, Pete Jackson were present with the state forester. And the state forester came in and examined that parcel of land between Home Inc. and Guile Road. And the determination, his opinion, was that the highest ecological value was the land closest to Blue Hill Parkway. And as a consequence, that was carved out of the land swap, and that will be preserved because it had the highest ecological value. So the 2.8 that is being traded is up the hill towards the football field. And that has and I'm not saying it's worthless, I'm not saying that at all. I'm suggesting that it has a lesser ecological value. So your point is well taken. We do look at the ecological value. And in my view, and I don't speak for the commission because we have nothing before us officially, but my personal view is that we are getting a great deal of ecologically beneficial land in return for giving up the 2.8 acres. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so.
You had other questions, but we defer to Sean on that.
Well,
one.
I didn't know if Sean, maybe it's for Sean about just the space issue, if that was under the purview of his committee around, you know, sort of the short-term issue of space and, or if it was only the long-term solution for that. Was it only the looking at long-term solutions for that? Because it's, you know, it's not something that's in the school committee budget, at least for the next year.
Yeah, may I speak, Mr. Chair?
Oh, sure. Of course.
Sorry, just keep it formal. So in regards to the short-term costs, and you know, Chair Rosemary may be able to speak to this too. I'm not sure that cost for temporary trailers and stuff like that would be carried under the school budget. I believe it would be a capital expenditure. So that may be why you didn't hear about it. There was initial discussion in the fall, right before Fontbonne came up, of installing temporary modular trailers to house some of the overcrowding that we're dealing with. The cost of which is about $7 to $8 million from initial costs that we were taking there. We paused that at first when Fontbonne became available because we might have been able to address this at a quicker option, but that may be resurrected in the near future, maybe next fall. In regards to the charge of our committee, is to address overcrowding, whether it's temporary or permanent. But the school committee also has a facility subcommittee that's been working on this also. So essentially we're teaming together to kind of address that. So I'm trying to build a separate subcommittee on my committee to work with them and together come up with it. The retirement of Mr. Ritchie that he announced is, you know, tough timing for us to do that. So, you know, for us, that's what we're doing. The timeline that you quoted, though, for the construction of a school to 8 to 10 years was not correct. It's about 7 if we go with the MSBA process, and potentially even shorter if we don't go with MSBA.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Ms. Watson. Are there any other comments or questions? Ada, I see your hand.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to respond to Linda's question a little bit more. Sean covered a lot of it, but he was right that the work to carve up our schools to create classrooms where there were not classrooms before has been part of our capital budget, which is separate from the school's operating budget. And we were given, I think it was around $160,000 2 or 3 years ago that Bill Ritchie and the Consolidated Facilities have been chipping away at as they've been creating these spaces around our buildings to accommodate the growth. But Sean is also right that we have been looking at, and we studied over the summer with Bill Ritchie, looking at the possibility of installing trailers, portable classrooms, and were advised that it made more sense to put them all in one location because it's about $1 million of site work to install a portable classroom, and rather than do that site work in multiple different locations, that it made more sense to just invest in that site work in one location. And so that was something that we were looking at. And then Fontbonne came on the scene, and we really thought that that could be a shorter term fix and possibly be able to get to that more quickly. And so we stopped pursuing that when we were pursuing Fontbonne.
Right.
But Sean is right that you know, between now and when the new school building comes online, we very well may be back to that proposal.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are you all set, Ms. Watson?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, thank you. All right, are there any other comments or questions?
Oh, I have a question. Sorry, I can't find my hand raised button. But my name's Maggie Oldfield. I'm a town meeting member from Precinct 5, and I'm currently a planning board member, but I'm speaking tonight as a lifelong resident of Milton. And I'm a huge supporter of the schools. My kids are the 3rd generation of the Oldfield family to graduate from Milton Public Schools. So I do think it's a little bit unfortunate that we are pitting school supporters versus conservation of land supporters. And I kind of feel like we're at a Conservation Commission meeting, and I think we kind of have gotten lost. I, again, sympathize with the schools, but this is all about the land, and we really shouldn't be focused on the school situation. I do appreciate all the work that the school building committee has done, but actually I appreciate all the work that all of our residents have done generations before us. So yes, the past year or 2 years that the schools building committee have put in has been tough work, but it's been really tough work for generations. So back in 1978, my father sat on the Conservation Commission, and his signature is on the document that puts this land in conservation. And I'm kind of greatly offended that it's coming out of conservation. We should do all that we can do through the Conservation Commission to keep land in conservation. We're not making any more land. We need to preserve it. We need to be creative with our solutions. And I think taking land out of conservation is not the correct solution. We are actually undoing all the work from previous generations, and we're going to be harming our kids and our grandchildren in the future. And I just think there are other creative solutions that can be done. And I think we are, to Joe's point, I think the process is a little bit flawed. I do think that we should be getting funding for the school first. Land acquisition is one part of the cost, but actually funding for the school is the bigger cost. So I think we really should get the residents' approval for funding, and then we can find land for it. Because my concern is it's going to come out of conservation, and then what happens? What if it doesn't get funding? What's going to happen to that land? Are we going to be reassured that that land is going to go back into conservation, or is it going to become available for some other future development? Because there's always going to be a need. We need so much in this town, and there's always going to be a need. But there's really a need to preserve our trees and preserve our open spaces. And I just think, I think the process has been flawed, and I think it's been rushed. And I'm also wondering if I could be provided a copy of the land value assessment of all the properties in town that you're talking about. Because I think part of putting land in conservation is you have to put, like, not just like kind land, but also the same value, dollar value of land. So I'd like to also get that, that land assessment. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Oldfield. Are there others that would like to make a comment or ask a question? Joe, you're back.
Yeah, can I just piggyback for a minute on what Maggie just said? And I think what she said was heartfelt and well said. You know, and what Linda said too, I was thinking of this when she was speaking. For those of us who are concerned with conservation and preservation, as well as the needs of our students, this is about carving up and fragmenting conservation land as well. We can talk about all these different pieces here and there, but basically it becomes like the ecological integrity and of an integrated landscape is kind of lost. And of course, that's what will happen on Blue Hills Parkway with this Lamb legacy land. We're kind of chopping up, parceling up, creating, you know, postage stamp pieces of something that was once a whole. and had a kind of ecological integrity as well as a physical integrity. That kind of fragmentation and carving up is a big problem everywhere as we kind of continue to urbanize our landscape in towns and cities all over the place. So that is a concern. It's something I was talking to an ecology person about yesterday in preparation, thinking about this meeting, and that kind of fragmenting and carving up of larger areas that we have. We want it all in a way, and we're trying to squeeze things in and find ways to do it, environmentally correct. However, we know that there'll be impacts on water, landscape, runoff, wildlife, and all those things. So I just want to put it out there since it is a conservation meeting that we're at, as Maggie said. So thank you.
Thank you, Joe, very much. We had talked earlier about a site walk. We had a Conservation Commission meeting last evening. We do have a site walk up behind Cunningham and Collycott on the 25th. I do not recommend that we do this on the 25th because I'd like very much for Mr. Doyle to be present on this, and I know he's not available on the 25th. So I'm wondering if we could take a look at the next Saturday, and somebody's going to have to help me with the date. Anybody know the date following Saturday the 25th for a site walk?
25th, or the weekend, the week after?
Week after, yes, Joe.
Is going to be the 4th of March, right?
So let me ask the commissioners first. I'm just going through the screen here. Arthur, are you available on the 4th?
Yes.
Wendy, are you available on the 4th?
No, sir, I'm afraid I'm not. I'm going to be out of town.
What about oh, that's right. Up the following week beyond that, it would be the 11th?
The 11th.
Are you asking me, John?
Yes, I am.
Wendy? Yeah. At this point, I'm unable to make a commitment. I'm not entirely sure.
All right. Arthur, are you available on the 11th?
Yes.
Okay, let me keep going. Tom Palmer, are you available on either the 11th or the 4th?
I think I can probably do both.
All right, Ingrid, are you available for both? One or both? You're on mute, Ingrid.
Sorry about that. I'm just looking at my calendar. Looks like I am not available on the 4th, but I am available on the 11th.
Okay. I'm going through who else? Who am I missing? Guess that's all. So it looks like we have the most available on the 11th. Arthur, I should go back now and ask, are you available on the 11th?
Correct. Yes.
All right. And I know we have some time considerations. Am I missing anything? Sean, you might know that better than I. If we do the site walk on the 11th of March, and for the public's benefit, we do meet, we have to meet someplace primarily at the locus of the 2.8 acres. Some folks may want to see the other land. And I think that we did a site walk a year ago, I guess it was in April, and we actually hit all of them on occasions. But in this instance, we might want to go over to Summer Street so that we can see the Pope's Pond, 40 acres that the Conservation Commission. So at least those two sites, but perhaps if the public wanted, we could see them all. But let's target that for 8:30 on March 11th. That's a Saturday. We start at 8:30 in the morning. We meet at Gallery Road, and you can walk the site of the 2.8 acres there. And Sean, if you're on the 11th, you are?
Yep, I can make myself available.
All right. And date-wise, does that fit with other boards to the meeting?
Yeah, for upcoming meetings that I'd be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would work. Essentially, I've been waiting to get to other committees until I had this meeting tonight. And then I can follow up with the Parks Commissioners next and Select Board, just as, informational, similar to tonight.
All right. And that if there were a proposal, a formal proposal before us, our next meeting is the 14th of March. Now that site walk would be appropriate. It would fit within the Conservation Commission's regular schedule. So unless there's objection from any party, let's schedule a site visit for Saturday, March 11th at 8:30 a.m. Meeting on Guile Road. All right. So if there are no other comments, questions, thoughts, is there no to adjourn our meeting this evening?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Foothill. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ingrid. Any discussion? All in favor? We'll do a roll call vote. Arthur, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ingrid, how do you vote?
Yes.
Tom, how do you vote?
Yes.
Wendy, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes, John Kieran. Thank you all very much for your courtesy and attention, and we'll see you on the 11th. All right, good night all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks.